Hello, everybody. I'm back. It's me, Boots. And I'm here to do the first episode, actual episode, not just introductory thing, of Boots Tries Your Bad Builds. And then tries to make them better, maybe, by doing a few changes, if you'll allow it. Okay. So first of all, I'd just like to thank everybody for sending in all of those builds. I got, I think, like 16 or 17 of them. And they were all pretty great, I gotta say. Some of them were really good, some of them were really bad, and I love that about them. And the one I decided to choose in the end came to me in-game. That's not my mail, this is my mail. From Avantia Strongbow. And Avantia, thank you so much. I liked it a lot, and I will, I think I probably already will have sent you your gems for thanks and also good job. I will get to that in just a second. It was, so yeah, if you guys sent in your builds before, I still have them. And I will probably still use some of the ones that were sent to me for new episodes later on. But keep on, if you have other bad builds, anybody out there, send me them in the comments down below. I will add them to the list of things to check out, and maybe you'll be featured in another episode. But in the meantime, Avantia, what have you sent me? Oh, I gotta stop pressing that for mail. Avantia Strongbow. So there's no way to copy in-game mail, so I had to type this all out letter by letter in the search bar. But what does it say? A nice, sweet, short and sweet description. Power Renegade, no dodge rolling, face tank, lifesteal, perma fury, might lifesteal, and stuff. Kind of hilarious way to play. So 2 lifesteals. And stuff, and we even get stuff in this build, guys. I mean, that piqued my interest for sure. Definitely that piqued my interest, and the no dodge rolling piqued my interest. But probably a lot of you, anybody who plays Renegade or Revenant, knows why they say no dodge rolling, right? Because in Renegade, there's a minor trait here that's called Brutal Momentum, and it says essentially you get 33% crit chance increase when at full endurance. So if you don't dodge roll, you're always at full endurance, and you have an extra 33% crit chance increase. That's like 1,000. No, I don't know how much exactly it is, but that's a ridiculous amount of precision that you don't have to build into a power build. So I know why they did it, but the question is, can the build make up for never dodge rolling by having other ways of staying alive? And I think they did a good job, and I think they definitely have it set up in a way that it'll work. The only thing is, where will it work, right? So, like, you never dodge roll, so that means you can't really do PvP with this build, at least not without dodge rolling. Can't really do roaming in world versus world. You might be able to get away with doing, like, a Zerg, kinda, or maybe if you're just taking cans in world versus world. Definitely where this shines is just general PvE, where I am right now. And maybe you could do a dungeon or something or two with friends. Probably not raids, because I don't think it does enough damage for raids. But yeah, definitely general PvE. This is a general PvE build, and actually, after the tweaks I made to it, it might be just the general PvE build that I use from now on, because I like it that much. But so, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to separate this video into 2 little sections. The first section is look over Avantia's build and try to see if it's good, if it's fun, and just kind of describe it and see if it works for what it's trying to do. And then the second section is going to be me kind of going over what changes I would make to it, and you could take them or leave it, Avantia, just kind of how I'm going to be running it from now on. Maybe, hopefully, try to make it a little bit better, if that's even possible. So, let us begin. Let's start by showing the build on GW2skills.net. Okay, so here we are. GW2skills.net, we got the build already preloaded in here. So as you can see, they have sword. They didn't choose to use a different weapon set over there. So when you swap weapons, you still have 2 swords. those are both very power weapons. That makes sense. They use the Renegade stance, and they use Chalice. And Chalice is a pretty good tanky one too. You could give yourself stability. That's great when you're getting knocked around a lot. You got this guy who heals you and does a lot of little tiny hits. And remove conditions here and make sure that you don't get hurt too much with this guy, and it's a stun break. It's pretty good. Or damage reduction with this as well. Renegade stance, I've talked about this before in a past video. I love Soul Cleave Summit. It's got nice life siphon. That's one of the forms of life siphoning in this build, and a bunch of other things, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the traits. So, like we said, they have 33% crit chance increase because they don't dodge. That's pretty great. Where do they get a more crit chance increase? Well, in Invocation, the Grandmaster here, Roiling Mists, critical hit chances increased effectiveness when you're under the effects of Fury. So if you have Fury, instead of 20% crit chance increase, you have 40% crit chance increase. So with just this and this together, without dodge rolling, you have a 73 additional percent chance. Was it 73? I'm not sure. Yes, 73% increase of critical hit chance. So that means in your gear, you only ever have to give yourself 27 to hit exactly 100% crit chance. You never want to go over 27 because that'll just be wasted precision. What else have they got? They got some Fury coming from here when you disable, Fury coming from here when you invoke a legend, Might coming from Fury when you get Fury, extra 7% damage, extra 7% damage, and then and then Renegade. Let's talk about here. We'll talk about this later, but Blood Fury, they get some Callous Fervor whenever they get Fury, the 33% here. They get Protection whenever they use a Renegade skill. That's pretty good. And here it improves the Callous Fervor, and when you inspire things, you give people more might. That's pretty good too. And then finally, Devastation, where pretty much the crux of the build lies, is Battle Scars. Dance of Death. The Grandmaster in Devastation, it kind of ties the whole build together, because without it, you wouldn't have the amount of lifesteal that you would need to never dodge roll. But with it, you kind of do. So Dance of Death. Applying vulnerability to foes grants stacks of Battle Scars. And the healing for Battle Scars is increased when you're below 50% health. So when you're below 50% health, Battle Scars heal you for 600 and do about 400. I guess with a lot of power, though, you'll have up to like 500 to 600 life siphon damage. So each stack of vulnerability you do, as long as you follow it up with another attack, you steal 500 life. And there's no internal cooldown on this at all. It's insane. So as long as you're pumping out a ton of vulnerability with your skills or your traits, you are getting healed and doing a ton of damage as well. It's really incredible. This is kind of an overpowered trait, especially in PvE. In World vs. World and PvP, these numbers go down to like 70, which is way more balanced. And then you've got Notoriety. Since you're a power build, it kind of makes sense. You get 80 extra power and less condition damage, but that doesn't matter. And Unsuspecting Strikes, you get, this rounds out to about 5% extra damage. But a lot more damage when they're full health. And so that's the traits. Pretty straightforward. Later on, like I said, I'm going to talk about a few things I'd change. But meanwhile, the equipment, I kind of like what they did here. Very, very smart, straightforward things as well. They did Cavalier gear for their armor, because they don't need the precision, really. They go with a lot of toughness to be nice and tough and not take too much damage. It also has power and ferocity for that power build. Commander, all the Commander gear here is trying to get their precision up high enough so that they reach close to the 27%. They only get to 21.14, so that's something I'd also fiddle around with, because I would like it to be exactly 27. And then finally, they have a little bit of Valkyrie just for a little extra health. They get up to 19,000 health. And for their food, damage reduction here, that's kind of cool. I like that. And just extra power here. For their sigils, Sigil of Cleansing, I don't know. Well, anyway, we'll talk about that later, but that's, I guess, to remove conditions. It removes 3 conditions when you weapon swap, and it doesn't matter if you weapon swap because you have both swords every time. So you remove 3 conditions when you swap to this weapon in combat. And then Superior Sigil of Draining, whenever you interrupt an enemy, you steal life from them. And they like lifesteal in this build, so that kind of makes sense. And then finally for the runes, it's Superior Rune of Sanctuary. And that doesn't have any precision in it, so that's great. It's got a little bit of boon duration, so that's good for when they want Might and the Fury. And finally, the 6th slot bonus of it is gain barrier with health equal to 20% of any heals you receive. And that's not just your base heal, that's lifesteal as well. So since this build is constantly topping itself up to full health, a lot of the time lifesteal is wasted. But it's not entirely wasted with Rune of the Sanctuary. Very smart move here, because 20% of that lifesteal is still going to go towards a barrier on top of their normal health. So you'll probably, in the middle of a fight, be running around with, I don't know, an additional 500 to 2,000 barrier on top of your life. That's pretty nice. So that is Oh, I guess I'll talk about the skills too. So now that you know the traits, you kind of want to see a couple of these skills and see how powerful they are for this build. You already know Soul Cleave Summit is pretty great. A lot of life siphon damage for every hit you do, and also your friends, so that's great. But this is what's really important. So Ice Razor's Ire. It does 20 hits of damage. Small packages of damage, but still damage nonetheless. 20 hits of damage, and each hit does 2 stacks of vulnerability. Think about that with Battle Scars, with the Battle Scar trait that they have. With no internal cooldown, 2 stacks of vulnerability equals 2 stacks of Battle Scars, which are getting ticked off even with the Ice Razor's Ire getting hits. That is an insane amount of lifesteal just with this one skill. And then also you're going to probably use these 2 together maybe to also get the rest of the Battle Scars off of there. You're just dealing so much damage with these 2 skills. You could also do pulsing. Wait, what is this? Oh, here, pulsing daze. A little bit of daze is going out. That's pretty good too. So that makes sense with their interrupt thing that they had. And then with Chalice that they have, like I said, the stability is just so good. These hammers floating around you while healing you is also going to be triggering those Battle Scar stacks that you have. So you'll be stealing life basically with every hammer going around. You could interrupt them and taunt them with this and make yourself take less damage. This is more of the tanky set, the tanky legend. But it makes sense and it works. So now I'll just show you how it works with their current version of the setup. So I don't have exactly the same gear that they are using. I have the Cavalier stuff. I have some, but I also put on some, what's it called? Grievers stuff to get my crit chance, to get my crit chance up to around 27. If I dodge roll here, you'll see it's actually 28.57. I went too high with just this, I just had stuff lying around that I used for this. But even with this, even without the extra vitality and toughness that he uses in his, it still just works. Let's just make sure that I have the right trait set up. I think I do. Yeah, I have the right trait set up. Okay, so this is just to show you how his build works the way he has it set up. And what I like to do is I like to come here because for PvE stuff testing, because it's kind of like if you can get 2 fire hydras to attack you at the same time, it's pretty much like the hardest, some of the hardest general PvE mobs you could fight. So it's a good way to test your build. So here we are, we got 2 guys that are gonna come get me, hopefully, and let's just show you what this can do. Let's put down this little path so that they can't knock us off feet. Doing a lot of Battle Scars. The auto attack from sword does vulnerability, 1 stack or 2 stacks of vulnerability. So it is making me pretty strong as we're healing quite a bit as we are. And then now here's Ice Razor's Ire. Put that down, and I'll just Oh, he got interrupted, but but if he gets to attack things, he pretty much here to heal to full, like I did just there. I'm getting my road back down. I'm healing from the hammers now. I'm dealing a lot of damage to these guys, just auto-attacking. Switch back to this, put down Ice Razor's Ire. Hopefully he actually gets to attack this time. Yeah, looks like it's pretty good. Oh, look at all that damage. Look at all that damage and all that healing I'm getting. And yeah. Oh yeah, this guy right here is a ton of damage. Shackling Wave. Sword 4. It just does like 8 stacks of vulnerability, which means 8 times 500 damage on top of the healing, on top of the damage it normally does. So yeah, can't complain. Put down Ice Razor's Ire again. I dodged there. See, sometimes you might just want to dodge, right? But anyway, this is pretty good, I gotta say. But pretty good doesn't mean perfect, right? So I kind of wanted to take what this person did, what they did, and run with it, run with their exact idea, and see if I could make it into a bad build, into my version of what I would do here. So let's give it a shot. Okay, so where would we start to make some changes? Number one, I would say the number one is equipment. Let's go with. First of all, I like the idea of dual wielding swords this way. It's a fun thing to do, especially if you're only ever going to be in melee. But you know what? In general PvE, sometimes you might have to attack a boss or something, like, or a bounty, I don't know, from far away, and you can't do the sword like this. So maybe just do sword like that, and a short bow here. And a short bow, even with just power damage, does a ton of damage on its own. So yeah, you're going to stick with sword most of the time, but short bow is a nice thing to swap to if you ever have to. So I'm just going to clear all the settings here. Oh, okay, so let's first try to get the crit chance percentage to exactly 27% like we wanted. So it's exactly 100% crit chance when we have all our buffs on. So how would we do that? Let's see. Accessories. What are cheap ascended accessories? Berserker's cheap, and it's full power and full ferocity. And it gives us a little precision. So let's see what happens if we do all Berserker in the amulets and stuff. Well, we get to 27.19. That is pretty close to 27%. Oh, I know what we could do. These amulet, rings, and accessories are all pretty easy to get ascended versions of just from laurels. But back pieces are kind of harder to get ascended versions of. So let's move that back down to a Berserker exotic version of it. An exotic back piece you could just get from buying off the trading post. And yeah, so let's go to that instead. Oh, was that exactly 27% crit chance? Okay, I'll take it. So now all we got to do is anything else. And I think what we'll do is instead of going toughness, because yeah, you get more toughness, you get a ton of toughness here, and yeah, toughness is probably better for your build than vitality, because toughness works well with healing, you know, because lower health but you take less damage, and then healing is more effective in that way. But I think I'd rather not take this because it has lower power than, say, Valkyrie. So you get 45 vitality because you don't need any precision, but full power and full ferocity from this. So let us copy all that, get some more Valkyrie here, and more Valkyrie here. Very nice. Okay, so now pretty good crit damage, pretty good power to start off with. Exactly what we want for crit chance. And now let's think about the rune. So they had Rune of Sanctuary, and I think that's a very smart choice for being extra tanky, but I don't think you actually need that for this build because of how much lifesteal you got. I think you could get away with not having any additional defenses besides the Valkyrie gear. I think you could just go something more power oriented, like Superior Rune of Strength if you want extra might duration in case you don't think you have enough might generation. And that also gives you a good amount of power and 5% extra damage while under the effects of might, which you pretty much will always be. Or more likely, which is what I'm going to be running, is Rune of the Scholar, which does a lot of power, the full power as well, but even more ferocity. And then on top of that, 5% extra damage while your health is above 90%, which is pretty much all the time because you're health stealing so much. So yeah, let's run that. Copy upgrades. So yeah, Rune of the Scholar, and now we're at 228 crit damage. That's insane, and a lot of power. So next we do the sigils. Let's see here. They had Sigil of Cleansing, and so it's not a bad idea, but I don't think you actually need Condi Cleanse on this build because, I mean, let me think about it. Like in PvE, general PvE, there's not that much Condis going around that actually kill you, especially if you have this much lifesteal. So I would say forget about the Sigil of Cleansing and maybe think about running Sigil of Energy. So what say to maybe dodge rolling once in a while if you really, really need to? Like if there's a really powerful attack that might kill you, you could dodge roll against it and then swap weapons. And oh, look at that. Or even you could even just swap your legend, because that counts as a weapon swap too. And then look at that, you're right back up to full endurance. So I don't know if you want to accept the idea that now you could actually dodge roll in the worst case scenario, but with Sigil of Energy, you could kind of do that. If you really, really don't ever want to dodge roll, forget the Sigil of Energy then. And you could run Sigil of Force instead, because permanent bonus of 5% extra damage, that's like, with this build, probably around like 1,000 DPS. Or, which is what I'm going to be running, Sigil of Energy and on hit, Superior Sigil of Frailty. Superior Sigil of Frailty inflicts 2 stacks of vulnerability for 8 seconds after striking a foe from behind or the flank. And in PvE, you could totally do that if you're like moving around enough. So that's like a stack of vulnerability every second, essentially, which is 500 damage. Well, it's 500 lifesteal a second. And I think that is pretty strong. And I think it's a good replacement for the Sigil of Draining that they had, because the Sigil of Draining is like 1,200 health, but on a 3-second cooldown, and you're not going to be interrupting an enemy quite as often as you're going to be giving them vulnerability with the Frailty. So yeah, Frailty is the way I would go in this situation. Next, the food. I didn't mind the food, actually, that they had. The 10% damage reduction. Yeah, you could go with that if you want. But if you want to go super powerful, I don't know. Bowl of Sweet and Spicy, Butternut Squash Soup for extra power and ferocity. And then you want to just do power again. So yeah, tin of fruit cake or Fury Sharpening Stone. Let's just do tin of fruit cake. You do a lot of damage now with it. And yeah, that is a very strong build. Look at that. 233 crit damage. That much power before your might, exactly 100% crit chance. It's insane. And then for the traits, there are a few changes that I'd like to make on traits. Not too many. Invocation, I think I'm going to keep it exactly the same. The Royally Miss is perfect. Incense Response, it's nice to have that much might when you give yourself Fury. You give yourself lots of Fury. Other options include Rapid Flow. Yeah, a little bit extra healing on a 5-second cool. Not great, but the swiftness is nice. The boons you're getting from this, like if you are running Chalice, then stability is pretty good. Retaliation, not so much in this case. And the Rising Tide is, yeah, that's pretty great. So Invocation, I think you're good where you are. Devastation, you are also kind of pretty good where you are. Dance of Death, obviously you have to take. Notoriety, it's kind of a toss-up actually between Notoriety and Assassin's Presence. Notoriety, if I calculated it, is slightly better with 25 stacks of might than Assassin's Presence for for your own damage. But Assassin's Presence does give ferocity to your friends as well. So if you're going around with a group, do Assassin's Presence. But Notoriety, yeah, is slightly better than Assassin's Presence for yourself. When you're at 25 might, obviously. And then, yeah, Unsuspecting Strikes, 5% extra damage is just nice. You're not going to be using your heal skill that often, so this is not that great. Although, I mean, it's nice to be rewarded for using your heal skill, and this is not that important either. This is more for PvP. And then finally, Renegade traits. So there are some changes I definitely make here. Blood Fury. So yeah, Fury gives you Callous Fervor. That's nice. Gives you a little bit extra Callous Fervor because you get Fury quite often in this build. Maybe once every 5 seconds or something like that. But you know what? You don't need that. And you especially don't need the bleeding duration increase because you're not a Condi build. You especially don't need that because look at this. Your minor skill that you get automatically is when you critically strike or attack your enemies from behind or the flanks, you inspire yourself with Callous Fervor. So you are getting probably like 4 stacks of Callous Fervor a second since you're always critically hitting. You don't need extra Callous Fervor from this. And so you might as well use a trait, one of these 2 traits that actually give you a good secondary benefit rather than the bleeding duration. Like this one, when you dodge roll, which you now can do with the energy sigil, you could get regeneration or retaliation. It's okay, and it gives it to friends as well. That's pretty good. But more likely, you'd probably want to go with this one. Disabling foe cripples your enemy and leaves them vulnerable. 5 stacks of vulnerability, which means 5 stacks of lifesteal. And I think that is exactly what you want to do. Your master trait is pretty good. All for one. Yeah, protection's great. I wouldn't change it probably unless you want to have your offhand bow be a short bow and use it more often, because piercing on the short bow is pretty great. You know what? I would use it too because you don't really need that protection even though it's nice. It's a toss-up between the two, whatever you want to do, whatever you feel comfortable with. But the Grandmaster is definitely something I would change. The Lasting Legacy, yes. It makes Callous Fervor last longer for 12 seconds. Your max stacks of Callous Fervor is 5 anyway, so you're never going to drop below 5 stacks of Callous Fervor because of this minor trait. I don't think you need the additional length of it. The extra ferocity you get is okay. The condition damage doesn't mean anything, though. Like, this ups the ferocity that you get from Callous Fervor. And also, you could use your F1 skill, I think, to get extra might from this. But really, you want to use Vindication. With 100% crit chance and all of the hits you're doing with this build, you're going to be having 25 stacks of mites at all time if you take Vindication over Lasting Legacy. Because with Vindication, you get a stack of might every time you grant yourself Callous Fervor. So yeah, you got to go Vindication. That's like guaranteed 25 stacks of might for yourself. That way you don't even need all that boon duration you were building into your build earlier. Because yeah, you are going to have Perma Fury with this build now, and Perma probably, if you're hitting things, 25 stacks of might. So yeah, that is the equipment, that is the specializations, that is the new build that you'll be using. Now the skills, you know what? These are fine. These are really fine. These 2 legends, I mean. You don't have much choices besides this. Renegade Stance, love it. Ice Razor's Ire's too good. You can't pass it up. You have to take this. Chalice would be the tankier version of what I would use for this build. Chalice is good, totally usable, and I like it, and it does a lot of damage still. Nice and tanky. I love the stability. But you could definitely, instead of Chalice, if you really want to do an insane amount of damage, do Legendary Assassin Stance instead. And hear me out, it's because of impossible odds. So instead of the hammers going around hitting once every, I don't know, it's like a half a second or a third of a second or something, impossible odds does an additional hit of around 500, the tooltip says, but it's more actually because of all the crit and the power you have. But yeah, it does an additional hit every time you hit. So because all of your hits, like 7-shot, etc., Shackling Wave, Unrelenting Assault, everything, and especially Citadel Bombardment, everything is kind of like small lots of hits for your build, especially Citadel Bombardment. So that means if you're running impossible odds at all times when you're in Legendary Shiro stance, you are getting 50 to 100% extra damage on all your hits. And not only that, it's also triggering your lifesteal from your battle scars. It's like triggering the secondary hit each time, right? So like it's doing the follow-up attack to get the lifesteal from the battle scar. It's just insane. And then obviously quickness is nice. A nice little dodge roll here. Extra fury is good too. It's just amazing. You have to. It's for damage. It's just amazing. So I guess that is it. And I will now show you kind of how it works in game. I'm going to show you if I can. I'm just going to make sure. Yeah, so I'm swapping back to my version of it just to show you. I'm using the same skills, yeah, same thing. I was going to change this to this. I was going to change this to this. And I guess I could do the piercing. Let's keep the protection on for now, because I'm only going to use my swords, I think. But yeah, let us go. I'm only using non-ascended version of this too. This is all ascended because I want that exact 20. Look at that, 60%. So when I have fury, it's exactly 100. I love it. I love it. But yeah, I'll show you because you saw how long it took to kind of kill those two guys. I mean, yeah, I'm probably only going to fight one guy here just to show you something really cool, but just look how fast this is. I'm going to open up with Ice Razor's Ire and then gain a little bit of energy back to go into Citadel Bombardment and switch Legends right away to the Assassin stance. And when I get to the Assassin stance, I'm going to pop my Unrelenting Assault or whatever it's called, or what is it called again? Impossible Odds with a phased reversal as well to get close. Use Shackling Wave and just auto attack, and you're just going to see this guy melt. It's amazing to watch. I love it. So this is why I think I'm going to be using this build as my Renegade build from now on in general PvE. It's just nice, you know? It's just nice. So here we go, going inside, dropping the Ice Razor. Gonna drop the Citadel Bombardment, go in, do my Shackling Wave, and he's dead already. He's dead already. Did you see how fast that was? That was insane. That was insane. I tried it on a golem, and I think it's like 30 to 40 DPS burst damage. It like, after you do that opening thing, it like peters out, and you're down to like 15 to 20k with this build. So yeah, like I said, not really a raid build, but oh my god, that burst damage is so nice. So nice. And that is that. Thank you, Avantia Strongbow, for that fantastic idea for a build. It's simple, but I love it. And I'm sure people are running something like it already. It's just Battle Scars. Battle Scars are so good. And yeah, so send me more things if you can. I'm still going over the other ones, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully you enjoyed the build. And Avantia, hopefully you like some of the changes I made. You don't have to take any of them, but hopefully you like some of them. And thank you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you later. Bye.